Big Mama's house. Big Mama's house. Welcome to Big Mama's house. Big Mama's house. Yeah. Big Mama's house. Welcome to Big Mama's house. Big Mama's house. Yeah.
Welcome back to Big Mama's house, y'all. It is I, Mama, back to discuss some more Sister Wives book with you. This is an older book, came out about 13 years ago, called Becoming Sister Wives, The Story of an Unconventional Marriage. And this is chapter 5, and we are starting over because the second section of the book is called Sorority. And I guess that just means that, all the girls kept piling in. I don't know why it's sorority, but okay. Um, Two things about the rest of this entire section. First of all, there are lots of assuming going on. So many assumptions, and it's gonna, like, I don't know if you read it or if you have the book or if you can check it out, but there are so many. I assumed, I thought, she believed, or all these things, and but no one was communicating with anybody, and it's sad. And honestly, I think that so far in the book, this chapter 5 for Mary is probably the most honest one that we've had so far. And I find each one of these people, especially the ladies, fascinating. And you guys know that. So let's jump in. Mary says, like many women who choose plural marriage, I idealized the nature of sister wives. As I imagined it, it would be the most natural thing in the world for my sister wives and me to form instantaneous bonds or instantaneous friendships. Um, yeah, I think because again, that's what they're taught by their mothers and their grandmothers and their aunts and sisters and whoever else who's older married, that oh yeah, the party line is a sister wives is better than sliced bread and everything else, because that's the party line. And if you don't stick to it, then you get ostracized or in trouble. And she says, paradoxically, I am reserved, but at times can be opinionated, which makes me cautious about quickly forging close friendships with women. I get that. I'm kind of like that now. When I was much younger, um, I was very, very, very shy. I did not know how to express my emotions correctly or deal with them. Um, as when we're young, we don't have the emotional maturity to handle a lot of situations. Um, but I'm pretty forth. What's the word? I am opinionated, but I will not shove them down your throat as long as you let me, tell your opinion after telling me yours. Um, and don't sit there and shit on my opinions, because I will do my very best not to shit on yours. But um I can also be kind of stubborn. But um my reticence with having friendships with women is that most women are nuts. Okay? We are, it's true. I'm sure I have been a nutty friend a time or two. I fully admit that. I make no apologies, because, I've had my share of bitchy friends. So, it was my turn. That's all I gotta say. But anyway, I kind of get where she's coming from on that. And when she says, when Cody and I entered into our first courtship with a young woman we'd been introduced to at a church gathering, I was excited. She and I became close friends right away. This was unusual for me. As I saw it, we were on our way to achieving the sister wife ideal I'd always imagined. Though sometimes I got jealous of the afternoons they spent together, I did my best to deal with those feelings maturely. When things didn't work out, I was devastated when the courtship soured and she left. But she says, I felt betrayed. I had lost one of my closest friends, a woman I imagined would have been a perfect sister wife. Okay, so someone who has trust issues, as we know, is a little bit shy, awkward, it's hard to get to know people. Um, but, evidently this girl and she, had a really close friendship right away. And, that probably made her feel really, really good because for once, yes, she was courting Cody, but she was also courting Mary. And I bet that made her feel good. You know what I mean? I don't mean courting in like a romantic way, but in a sister wife way. And I just, it's very, she's very honest about all the emotional roller coaster that she lived on. She says, I'm not sure when it became apparent to me that Janelle wanted to join our family. Of course, since she had once been married to my brother, I had known her for several years. We had a cordial relationship. I still thought of her as my sister in law. Okay. In the first part of the book, Cody's trying to sell all of us that he and Mary became close friends with all these people and they knew each other and they were good buddies, and that's why he thought the marriages would work. But when we hear from the ladies, it's like, yeah, we knew each other. We're like, hey, how you doing, kind of thing. Not, oh my gosh, how did your date with Cody go? No, not no. He says, if Cody had feelings about Janelle that were anything other than platonic, he hadn't discussed them with me. I knew that he valued her intellect and her work ethic and had a deep respect for the way she conducted herself on an emotional level. Does that mean that she never voiced an opinion or disagreed or just never showed emotion and she was just your little robot? Is that what you mean by emotional maturity or way she conducted herself on an emotional level? Maybe she was just cool with, it being a business relationship and making babies. I don't know. She says, I was surprised when Janelle approached Cody and asked to come into our family, but not unpleasantly so. After all, she was close to my family already, and she was one of the people Cody and I associated with. It didn't seem too far of a stretch to imagine her as a permanent fixture in our lives. Well, especially not since she had probably already assumed they were going to be a permanent fixture anyway, because that was her sister-in-law. you know, she probably initially thought that her and her brother were going to be married forever. So, yeah, I guess they always knew that they're going to be a part of each other's lives, I guess. She says, I have to admit, part of me was relieved that Cody and Janelle weren't a conventionally romantic couple. Their bond was intellectual, which made it easier for me to accept Janelle. You know, that's the interesting thing. In this part, anyway, it seems as though not maybe she couldn't understand the emotions then or couldn't communicate the emotions then. But when this book was written, Mary has a more of an emotional intelligence about herself than you would think. So it's actually really amazing that she kind of gets it about herself. She says, after nearly 3 years of monogamous marriage, I was ready for a sister wife, or so I thought. Um, Cody and Janelle wanted to plan their wedding date for hmm Valentine's Day because it's romantic. No, June because that's when all the pretty weddings are. No, Christmas or New Year's when there's already a party. No, 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 no. They wanted to have their wedding on Mary's birthday. What? Yeah. Mary says, looking back, I realized a lot of my issues with our marriage were really because I thought they were being extremely insensitive. Um, Mary says that birthdays are very important to her and that it baffled her even more to think that a woman who was wanting to join their family would even think for a minute to do it on the birthday of her future sister wife. Yeah, I mean, okay, we all know Cody is completely oblivious and emotionally stunted and has no clue how to handle any kind of disagreement. Um, he doesn't remember to, take people on honeymoons. I mean, oh gosh. But Janelle, okay, Janelle should have known better. And why she thought it was a good idea, I don't know. I would love to hear her side of the story. Um, but Mary says, I was not as prepared as I believed myself to be. I was going to be sharing my husband. It was harder than I thought it would be. No matter how committed you are to the plural, to the principle of plural marriage, the first time the reality hits you, it's a total shock. For 3 years, she and Cody had been practically inseparable, and now there's going to be a new person in our midst permanently. And when you're 19 or 20 years old, um, the idea of something is completely different. I mean, listen, a lot of these couples got married before they even kissed, I mean, so what did they know of their own bodies, or what that intimate connection, how that the form it bonds for women with their spouse. um I just don't understand. Like, I get where she would be kind of side, what's the word, I feel like she got smacked up against the head, because yeah, that I can't even imagine. You think you'd be okay with something, and then the reality is maybe you're not, but you really want to be because you're told you're supposed to be, because your mom and your grandma and your aunties and your sisters and everybody else has a great plural marriage, so there's something wrong with you if you're not enjoying it, right? Yeah. And Mary says, "This is a time when you need people around you," my mother said. She knew without telling her how much I was struggling inside. And because she was struggling with who she was to the family, because now there was another wife, and Cody's attention was split, and there was other, I mean, it would be hard. So she did not want her daughter sitting home alone while her husband was on a honeymoon with someone else. So her mama pulled her in, and that was a great thing to do. But Mary says, Cody called me every day to check in and tell me he loved me. Very sweet. And it's easy to do when you really truly love one wife and married the other one on a business arrangement. But that's just my opinion. And then she says, neither Cody nor I anticipated the need to change our behavior when Janelle came into the house. We hadn't considered how we might have to balance the relationship he had with me with the one he was developing with Janelle. I never took the time to think about how I should open up my space, both physical and emotional, to accommodate a new wife. That, wow. I mean, that is some truth right there. And the fact that she understands that, and that I think she's tried for several years to make amends with her sister wives for some of the mistakes of youth and immaturity, and everybody being new to everything. um but I mean, I don't know. Those are just my opinions because of what we see. We don't see the whole story, so who knows. Then she says, I felt as if I was welcoming to Janelle, but I didn't realize at the time how different our personalities could be. When we were deciding who would get what bedroom, I offered Janelle the master bedroom, thinking it might be something special to have as a newlywed, while I took the small bedroom at the back of the house. Okay, that was sweet. That was an offer of friendship and like an olive branch and like, welcome to our family. This is your home too, kind of thing. I think that's wonderful. Um, she says, I didn't realize that Janelle wasn't the type to speak up for what she needed. So I didn't know whether this was something that was important to her or even appreciated. I assumed that Janelle would feel free to behave with Cody the same way I was with him, and I didn't realize I needed to change my behavior sometimes as well. And this is when they were like holding hands or kissing or snuggling on the couch or something, and maybe the things that they had done before, and then now Janelle was there and it made it, very awkward for poor Janelle. And that would be difficult. But again, if you don't speak up for yourself, you're part of the problem. And that is my firm belief. You can't sit back and be unhappy about something and say nothing and do nothing. and then expect other people to read your mind and make you happy. That don't fly with me. And again, I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what happened. I'm just making conversation. And then she says, although Janelle is by no means as physically affectionate a person as I am, it was not healthy or fair for her to see the affection I shared with Cody. I'm sure, which is another assumption, this led to hard feelings towards me. And so, again, Mary being very aware, very honest about a lot of mistakes she made. And she says, when we went out together somewhere other than church associations, we always introduced Janelle as Cody's sister. And since Janelle's mom married Cody's dad, that was technically kind of true, which is kind of, if you think about it, but okay. And she says, things you simply can't do when another wife enters the picture is living in the same house. It can be perceived as preferential treatment, and that it's just not okay in a plural marriage. Like curling up on the couch together, doing things that, again, anything that would make the other spouse uncomfortable. And Mary says, I didn't always handle the stress of the new situation as I should have. I didn't know how to hold back or temper my opinions. I am a very direct person, and when I have a strong opinion about something, I can be a little bit harsh. Again, that is not a trait that is uncommon, okay? I know several people in my own family that, are very much that way. Um, but yeah, I mean, and it seems like she's trying to apologize for it, like she knows that she made mistakes. And she says, Janelle, on the other hand, is quite non-confrontational and seems to have a hard time being honest with herself or with others about her feelings. I didn't intend to be mean, and I wasn't even aware that I was coming across that way. So we're come down to personality and confrontations differences, and the fact that there's a big sexual element involved in a house where there's, everybody's doing whatever. I mean, and they're all so young and again, emotionally immature. And so the honesty that I'm seeing in this chapter gives me hope a little bit. Um, this whole next thing is just, it's weird. It goes on about how Mary believes that if you're not being honest, means speaking your mind and letting people know what you need or want or what your preferences is, then that is a form of lying. And Mary felt betrayed by it. And again, if you're in a church and you believe that lying is wrong, and if you believe that, or maybe you're raised to believe that, maybe that's why Mary is so opinionated, because maybe she was raised saying, hey, you need to be honest, good or bad, be honest. And, you know, again, young people tend to be a bit harsher with their opinions than older people, I think. Um, and again, she says that she hadn't learned how to be softer in the delivery of her words and not so overbearing. And she says, naturally, the tentative friendship that I had with Janelle deteriorated even more in the months following her marriage to Cody. So she had a friendly acquaintance, I guess, whatever, with her before they got married, and then it just kept worse and worse because these people never communicated with one another. Mary didn't communicate with Janelle and vice versa. Mary with Cody and vice versa, and then Cody and Janelle and vice versa. It's terrible. Like everyone is assuming what everyone else is thinking or feeling or doing or what their intentions are, but no one ever takes a second to go, "Hey, man, what the hell are you talking about?" It just drives me nuts. So she says Cody had a new job and it took him on the road a lot, which left poor Mary and Janelle home alone with their growing list of complaints against each other. And it just goes downhill from there. And then it says they had a lot of rough patches and they both did and said things to each other that I'm sure that they would like to forget. There's a lot of past history thing. And this is interesting right here. Things that I won't talk about in specifics in public out of my respect for Janelle and my desire to protect her. I want that story. What does that mean? I would love to know what happened. Did Janelle finally have enough and like pop you one? Like what happened? You know? I don't know. And then Mary says, the most difficult emotional battle I could face during the first year after Janelle joined our family was when she got pregnant. Cody and I had been married for 3 years, and naturally we'd been trying to conceive, but we'd had no success. So when Janelle conceived before I did, I was pretty devastated. Um, I think any woman with any kind of a heart who is or isn't a mother, but who loves children, and if you know anybody who has desperately wanted children and physically can't, I really do. My heart goes out to Mary at this time because infertility is such a personal, horrible thing because you always blame yourself. And especially with the religion where, like you're expected to have more children, the more children you have, the better heaven is or whatever. And so she felt not only was she letting down her husband as a couple, but her family is their spirituality, I would imagine. So that's tough. And she says after that, after Janelle got pregnant, she turned inward and started to withdraw from Cody and Janelle. And then while Janelle was pregnant, okay, and then Mary is reeling from the pregnancy, Cody starts courting Christine. And she says, Cody's courtship with Christine was much more difficult for me than his with Janelle had been. Cody and Janelle were friends, very close friends. I knew Cody loved Janelle, but it was in a totally different way than he loved me. Where Cody and Janelle's courtship had been less outwardly romantic, this new relationship was grounded in an undeniable emotional attraction. Okay, so this is how Mary is even describing his relationship with Christine, and even Cody has said she saved the Brown family. She brought us all together. She made us a family. And then that how they're talking, not Mary so much. I don't see anything that Mary said, but Cody especially is like all these horrible things about her, and I'm getting pissed off about it. But anyway, sorry. Back to the book. Um, she says, when Cody proposed to Christine, I suddenly felt as if I were less important to him than I had ever been before. It cemented my feelings of inadequacy in our relationship when Cody called me only once when he and Christine were away on their honeymoon. Because remember, when he was going with Janelle, it was every day. And now it was like once. And after, not being able to get pregnant and, him knowing that she was having issues with Janelle, yeah, she probably felt really, really, really low at this point. And she says, although I had a hard time with Cody and Christine's courtship, I was surprised at how easily I became friends with Christine. I couldn't help my disappointment when she too became pregnant. Nearly 5 years into my marriage with Cody and still no baby. Um, but then not too long, it says when Christine was 4 months pregnant, guess who finally gets to have a baby? Anyhow, so they get pregnant with Mariah, and that was their miracle baby. And I'm going to use the name in the book. I know Mariah is now Islan's dead name. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything towards that, I promise. I'm just using the name that's in the book. So I hope you all understand. And if I'm being wrong, let me know, because like I said, I'm not up on all the etiquette and whatnot, so I'll do my best. Okay. So we were reading, and she goes, Mary says, my entire life I'd always wanted 8 kids. And so she was really hoping that after having Mariah, she'd be able to have more. And she said, since Janelle and Christine got pregnant so often and so easily, it was clear that Cody had no problem fathering children. I struggled to come to terms with the fact that I was somehow defective. Now, I hate that word because we all have issues in our bodies. So if not now, then someday you will, I promise. And it will make you feel like you're defective at some point. And please, I know that feeling. Don't do that to yourself. Talk to somebody before that feeling turns real ugly, y'all. Okay. So she says when Mariah was 12 years old, she got pregnant, but she lost the baby after only a couple of months, which of course was completely devastating. Thinking you'd never have another baby, and then miracle baby number two, and yeah. Um, she says the root of many of our problems stemmed from two issues: our living situation and Cody's job. Most of the time, Cody traveled for work, leaving all of the moms to basically be single mothers for periods of time while he was traveling for work. And during, and it says in here, it glances over it. Remember I talked about last time where they mentioned something and then right over it to the next good part? Well, she says, during a period when he was on the road a lot, Janelle moved into her own house. Although she and I had been struggling under one roof for nearly 10 years, the separation of our children was difficult. Um, I'm thinking this is what they're talking about, the time whenever she got fed up with them all and was like, fuck this shit, I'm out kind of thing for a while with Logan, and maybe, I'm not sure if I know for sure Logan. Um, I don't know. Again, they gloss over so many things that could be so relevant. You know what I mean? And then she says Cody found a job to be present in our children's lives on a much more regular basis. Do you remember when the show started and it made it sound like he saw every one of his kids every day and he'd been there for them since the day they were born? Well, they're straight up saying in this book that he traveled a lot for most of the time, whenever up until right before they met Robin, not too long before. Because it says what really changed our situation and brought us together as a family was when we found a house in which our entire family could live together under one roof. Okay? This book again came out in 2013. I'm assuming they started writing it in 2010ish, 2011, right after the documentary and everything came out. So, I'm just like, they were only in this house together, happy, everybody at their own place, for a very short time. So no wonder the kids were so upset when they had to move to Vegas. It's crazy. Um, she says, by the way, these chapters are much longer than the last section, so bear with me. I'm going as quick as I can for you guys without trying to talk too fast and be dumb. Um, she says, while I cannot have any more children of my own, I have been able, through my sister wives, to give Mariah many brothers and sisters. If I hadn't chosen polygamy, I would never have achieved the large family I'd always dreamed of having. See, again, I hope this isn't complete bullshit. But if this is as true as the rest of the chapter was about how she made mistakes and she did stuff wrong, and she knows she was immature and young and didn't handle things great, um then I hope that that's true, that she came to peace with that, and that she loves all the children, and I hope that's true. That would make me happy. And she said, since I have more time on my hands and since my living area is always quite a bit more peaceful than the others, I'm the mom the kids come to when they want a little quiet time away from their siblings. They call it Mary time. And I understand that some of the older kids, maybe again when they were all much younger and things were a lot crazier and a lot of emotions were still heightened and maybe didn't know proper ways of discipline. I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened with Mary and the kids. I wish I knew, because again, it could be so clinically relevant to figuring out what exactly was going on with her at the time. Um, but I'm glad to know that some of the kids, maybe even a lot of the kids, would and have that relationship, because she's human too. And we all have good and we all have bad, and we've all done bad things. We all have things we regret, things that we're ashamed of, but that does not define who we are. We get to grow and change. And again, it's not okay to do anything to hurt our children, but I don't know. I don't know. I just know that people can change. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, oh la la la. And she goes, Janelle and I are very different people. We see the world in opposite ways and handle situations in entirely different manners. If we weren't married to Cody, our friendship wouldn't have gone past basic cordiality, which is basically what they had before she married Cody. So it just wouldn't have changed, basically. In 2006, my younger sister Teresa passed away, and it made me realize that should something happen to me, there would be two, and now three, women in Mariah's life who would raise her in precisely the way I would have wished. Again, that is a good way to look at it. All the stuff you've been through, there are a lot of, silver linings. And she says, since I have only one child, I often felt slighted in family decisions. Although I voiced my opinions, perhaps a little too aggressively, I still felt as if I wasn't being taken into consideration. And that might account for some of that aggression, because if you don't feel heard, you get resentful and you get frustrated and you get sometimes it some people just like to say fuck it and give up and just sit there and don't say anything, and other people are little bulldogs and they dig in and they're like, no, listen, no, listen to me, I'm trying to talk to you, I'm trying to tell you, and not feeling heard. And I know I sound like I'm defending Mary all this entire chapter, but this is her chapter and I'm trying to see it from her perspective. So believe me, some of the perspectives change as we get to different chapters, so don't get upset with me yet. And she says, over time, my insecurity about having only one child grew. I began to wonder if I would even matter if it. Sorry, I can't talk, you guys. I began to wonder if it would even matter if I wasn't around. I felt insignificant to myself and definitely to Janelle and Christine. And so, that's got to be tough. You've got the other two wives who were extremely fertile and had lots of children and all different ages, and um and then you got Mary. Well, we're at the one child who's in school all day or at activities or sports or whatever, and you can feel very left out. I kind of felt that whenever I first started watching the show so many years ago, that Mary seemed lonely. And she says she needed to to search for something that would help fulfill her. Um, she says after 16 years and 13 kids, all of them had figured out who we were as a family and how to make things work. We were a well-oiled unit, and we could see this reflected in our children's happiness. Her relationship with Cody was floundering. After nearly 20 years of marriage, issues that they had left to simmer had begun to boil over. So, yeah, it just gets better and better for poor Mary here. So all this stuff is going on, and poor Mary uh feels like she's losing her marriage. And guess what? Right about the time that they were suffering to that low point in their marriage, and Mary's feeling completely alone and useless and, unloved, guess who walks into the picture? Dun, 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 dun. It's Robin. A little spoiler there for you if y'all hadn't been paying attention. Um, And it says, it didn't seem necessary to bring up the subject of Robin to the rest of the family until it was more apparent that there might be a potential for courtship. So she became a little connection that Cody and I shared, a sweet, special bond in a time of turmoil between us. I wanted her as a friend. Janelle and Christine had not yet met her, so this little relationship between Cody, Robin, and me felt special. At first, the three of us had a wonderful friendship, but then the time came for Robin to start exploring her relationship with Cody on a deeper and more personal level. Things became difficult for me. I had been instrumental in bringing Robin and Cody together, and now I wasn't needed anymore. You guys, the truth. I'm saying this is the most honest chapter so far because she lays her feelings out there. She says, I messed up. I did. I was, here's why, but it's not an excuse. But who hasn't said or done something stupid when you were frustrated or angry or young and dumb? I mean, God, I can't. I apologize to everybody that I did that to when I was young. I really do, because I was like pretty bad at it. Um, and she says, Robin's presence transformed from something that filled me with joy to something that made me extremely lonely. Robin and Cody started courting at the absolute low point of my marriage. And this whole thing here just makes me go, wow, Says Cody and I have very different ways of communicating. He is happy to just stop talking about the issue and let move on, never discussing it and considering it dealt with. Um, my husband is also that type of communicator, so it's been fun. Um, well, I really need to discuss it and issue some kind of closure on the subject. Yeah, that's me. So yeah, we've had to teach each other how to communicate better so that we each get our needs met. And she says, but Cody and I found it easier to ignore our problems instead of addressing them. Over a 20-year marriage, this led to a significant amount of misunderstanding and strife between us. I felt insignificant and insecure in my relationship with Cody. I struggled with all the time that he needed to spend with Robin and her kids in southern Utah. Again, I turned inward and began to wonder what benefit I had to this family. Cody and I were hanging by a thread, and he was off courting someone else. I think that, again, it's very honest. It's just, boom, this is how it happened and how I felt about it. And before you say, oh, she's just talking about me, me, me. Well, guess what? This is her chapter. This is her voice. This is how she, from her perspective, this is their story from her perspective. And the reason that each chapter is a little bit different is because everybody perceives their story from their own point of view. So, of course, even though it's the same story, it's going to come out 4 different or not 5 different ways. So, yeah, it's every girl gets their me, me, me chapter. And unfortunately, so does Cody. And she goes on to say, I felt as if Cody was shutting me out of his life almost completely. So they decided to see a marriage counselor. And she says, I know Robin was also anxious for us to mend our marriage before she came into our family. Now, wait a minute. On this last season, I think it was the first episode, maybe, of the season 18. It was either that, there's only 2 episodes out so far, so either 1 or 2. But Robin even said, it had to be episode 1, where she said, I feel like lied to. Like they painted this pretty picture of this perfect family, and I never knew there were any issues or any problems at all. Well, that's not what you say in your book, lady. It says Robin was anxious for us to mend the marriage before she came into it. So, of course, what becomes a priority to Cody? Getting in Robin's pants. That's right, he's taking the first wife to therapy. The hypocrisy of Robin sometimes annoys me, just so you know. And anyway, Mary says, it took a lot of hard work, but now Cody and I are at our absolute best. We are still, or again, very much in love. It is a wonderful thing knowing that Cody is absolutely my soulmate. Well, maybe you thought so, but Robin is a soulmate, as we learned from um, uh, Benjamin Brown, that a soulmate is actually a thing in their doctrine, that they only get one and the rest of their lives are leftovers from the men souls that went with Lucifer. So these other women didn't have a mate, and so they just took the leftovers. That's the very short, condensed version of it. But yeah, everyone has one soulmate. The rest are just the others, I guess you call them. Capital T, capital O. um, and she says a little bit here later, Janelle and I have learned how to function well together. We don't have an extremely close relationship, but it's good. Christine and I know how to get goof off and have fun together. Our relationship is good on a surface level, but it has absolutely no depth to it. I can see that. Like, I don't feel it back then that Christine had a lot of depth. And I'm not saying, okay, Mama may just stuck her foot in it. That's not what I didn't mean it the way it came out. I meant that I think she was trying her best to be the perfect third wife. Keep things fun and light. Try to keep, the peace between everybody. Don't dig too deep. Just let, if the pond looks calm, don't go looking for currents, It's that kind of thing. And so not that I'm not saying that she doesn't have a brain or, depth to her, but that I think she was trying to keep it peaceful for people. And so she was just kind of the smoother, if you know what I mean. I don't know. I wasn't there. That's just what they tell us. Then she says, after 22 years, Cody and I are better than ever. We share a deep and passionate love and finally understand each other's love language. And she says, I go to family reunions and I see my family members who are monogamous. I often wonder, how can you have your husband around all the time? When do you have time for yourself? Okay. I'm sure as all of us, most of us modern women know that, okay, my husband is my best friend, but we need other people too in our lives because sometimes I need to bitch about him and sometimes he needs to bitch about me, and that's okay. That there's nothing wrong with saying, "Oh my God, she's driving me nuts. I don't know what is wrong with her lately. I don't know if it's the menopause or the pain, but I just need a break." And you know what? That's okay. That's perfect. That's human. Everyone, that's fine. But you it who again back from the first part of the book, why do they have to be together 24/7? But not wanting to be with your spouse 24/7 is also, I mean, there's got to be a commonality. Like, I'm not making any sense. After all that time, they're used to sharing him. Okay, they're used to the routine. They get every third night or whatever, however they work it. And, but yet he's still in the house and he's there. It's just, okay, you guys, are you getting what I'm saying? I know I'm a little bit I took some allergy meds and they're kicking my butt a little bit, but I hope some of this gives you a little bit more insight because, especially this season when so much truth is coming out about what quote unquote really happened, and how people are really feeling and doing, this book has become so much more pertinent because you're catching them in all the lies and you can kind of see the truth between the lines because somewhere between there and here there's a truth, and you can kind of see it as everything's coming along. So by the end of this season I'm really hoping that we will have more answers. That I'm only halfway through the book and I have lots of questions. It like Cody in his little first section about his intro into the polygamy world, he doesn't talk about his family hardly at all. Okay, why? I thought he adored his father and he was the best guy ever and he's close to all his brothers and he loved his mama. And you're like, why don't he tell, why? Like, there's so many, like, the stuff that they don't talk about is as interesting as the stuff they do talk about. I'm just saying. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm sorry it ran so long. Be safe, buckle your seatbelts, spay and neuter your pets, and please be kind. Bye, y'all.